Dylan, welcome to Locked In, man. You drove up from Vermont today. We don't know if you're our first guest from Vermont or not. We'll have to figure that out. But anyways, welcome, and thanks so much for coming out here today.
Man, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's cool.
Of course, man. Plug your YouTube channel and stuff in right now at the top of this episode that you were just telling me about.
Yeah, I'll have to get you the links. Like I said, I don't know how to get those links to my channels, but yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah, tell people what they're about though, and I'll have the links later in the description of this.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I was telling you before, my initial YouTube channel that I've had for, 15 plus years, just miscellaneous. I did, kind of some stupid shit. Am I allowed to swear on here?
Of course, yeah.
I did stupid shit. There's some MMA stuff on there because I did MMA and boxing. There's mostly gaming stuff, like live streaming gaming. Played a lot of Warzone. Like I was big into Warzone for a long time.
I love Warzone. I've been playing Call of Duty nonstop lately. Zombies, Warzone, everything.
Yeah, yeah. It's every night, never failed. I was streaming with that. And then my main YouTube channel that I've been doing stuff on for the last 2 years it's called Dr. Bud's 802. It's the cannabis channel. I used to grow outdoor with my dad and stuff, and I never really got into it, kind of just planted them, let them do its thing. But the indoor, I always wanted to grow. I always wanted to learn how to do the indoor because everything was so much better with that. And, again, with all the legalizations and stuff, while I started my journey, I figured I'd document that whole journey, So, yeah, I made the channel Dr. Bud's 802, and I do everything from weekly update videos on my current grows to, step-by-step DIY tutorial stuff, just on various aspects of the grow cycle, things you need to do, because it's different when you grow outside. It's Mother Nature runs its course. You really don't have to do a whole lot, but indoor you have to control your environment, temperature, humidity. You got to feed them. You got to have the right soil, the right, everything fluctuates and changes. Like for example, when you're starting off seeds, they don't have a root zone yet. So you want the humidity to be as high as you can really have it because they're drawing the water from, the moisture in the air and the humidity. So they establish their root zone. Usually in the vegetative stage, I don't know how much you know about growing.
Nothing.
There's a veg cycle and a flower cycle. And the veg cycle is 18 and 6. And that's, you're really just trying to, establish your root zone first, and then, you can do stress training, bending branches down to get them to, manipulate your grow certain ways. There's, you top your plants to get them so that it's not like a Christmas tree. When you top them, you cut the top off, that top site. It grows in two from there. But not only that, it redistributes the energy from the top to all the other lower sections. So then you get this bushy plant, and you can top 2-3 times if you want. But I only have a 3x3 tent, so I have limited space. I can usually run 5 or 6 plants in there, and I throw down this netting. It's got 3-inch squares in it so that I can bend the branches down so that they grow outwards and up, and all the stuff on the inside of the plant gets to grow. So it really maximizes what I get from my grow. And again, I don't smoke a lot. I don't have a tolerance. I used to smoke like a champ, but it's just the stuff these days is not like it used to be. It's strong. Get too anxious if I smoke too much, or get feeling like I'm doing something wrong. I could be laying in bed watching or listening to your podcast. And I'm like, fuck, what am I doing? I'm doing something wrong. Something, I get bugging out. But yeah, edibles or just a couple puffs at night. But like I said, I like the hobby of it. Just kind of like with anything, starting from nothing or the bottom and seeing what your end results are.
Well, we're gonna send you home with some edibles and Tyson joints so you could taste those out. Shout out to our sponsor Tyson 2.0 and Ric Flair's Woo Energy.
Yeah, I have looked forward to those things ever since I listened to Mike's podcast and he talked about them all the time. And I was like, I gotta get some of those at some point. So that's cool that you had those here.
Yeah, I do one every night before bed. It just nothing helps me better to sleep at night than those.
Yeah.
And it just helps so much. So anyone that's listening and wants to try an edible for the first time, check out like your local dispensary, see if they carry Mike Bites, or if you go to the Tyson 2.0 website, it'll tell you their locations, but that they're great. They really are good. It's a good product.
No shit.
Now, did you grow up in Vermont?
Yeah. I was born and raised Barry, Vermont. I don't know if you're familiar with Vermont at all. It's Barry City. It's central Vermont. About 40 minutes away from Burlington. I don't know if you know Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah. In middle school, kids used to take the snow and ski class, would do like every couple of months, they would go to Burlington.
Yeah.
That's not too, that was like 3 hours from here, Burlington?
From here?
Yeah.
Well, it's about 40 minutes north of me, and I am about 4 hours north of you. It's about 5 hours.
Okay,
about
gotcha.
5 hours get you there. But yep, I was born and raised Barry, Vermont. My parents had moved to Williamstown, like 10 minutes outside of Barry when I was like 9 years old. City just started getting really bad with drugs and crime and all that stuff. So they wanted to get it out of the area. I didn't, but I had no choice. I had to go with my parents. And, I stayed hanging out with all my friends from Barry. Took me a while to really fit in Williamstown out there. I mean, I made friends, but I was a bad influence and bad example on people. And, well, I'll get to some of that stuff, but,
Did you have any siblings growing up?
I was raised as an only child. My father has another daughter from a previous marriage that didn't know he was her father up until I was probably 14. We got to, I got to meet her and her husband and stuff, and they were pretty nice, and they started to kind of build a relationship with us, and I kind of ruined that later down the road. I'll get to that. But I was basically an only child. It's just me. Pretty independent. I did my own thing, hung out with my friends. I was fine by myself. We didn't have electronics and shit back then, so it was all, it's just hanging out with your friends and coming home when the street lights came on, or, you always knew where all your friends were because of whatever lawn had all the bikes on it. And, good old days. It's different these days. The kids just want to, it's all Roblox and Fortnite. And my daughter, as much as I don't like the fact that she's so hooked to electronics and video games, she's 11, she's about to be 12. I'd prefer to have her doing that than being outside in the neighborhood that we live in. Used to make me feel bad because she would ask, why can't I go outside and play with the other kids in the neighborhood? And she just didn't get it. She's too young to understand for a while that it's just not safe, and she gets it now. She sees the stuff that goes on, the fights, the cops, the ambulances, and, we get, Barry's not really on the map. Vermont is not on the map a lot compared to a lot of other places. A lot of people think of it like a woodsy, backcountry type of area, which, yes, we have that, but we also have our cities that have, the drugs, the crime, all that stuff. Barrie just happens to be one of those places. We get shootings, we get stabbings, there's a big drug problem. It's all drugs. It's the main problem. There's nothing there. There's nothing there for these kids to do except follow in the same footsteps as their parents or their siblings or friends. And it's not a good area to grow up in. As soon as we can get out, we're out. It's just sketchy. Can't even walk around safe without having to look over your shoulder. I mean, I got stabbed back in 2016 just walking. Got in an altercation with a couple guys. I think they thought I was somebody else because I didn't know these people. Yeah, that was... I guess I'll talk about that more later in the story. But my childhood, my father was... my mother drank. She still drinks. My father was a drug addict. He was addicted to crack cocaine. And I didn't know what was going on there for quite a while until I was a teenager. I just knew, I'd see the fights, see my father leave, and it was kind of normal to me. I just didn't really know quite what was going on.
The great rewards hunt is calling, and your jackpot journey begins now at DraftKings Casino. Discover huge bonuses, thrilling games, and exclusive prizes. And if you're new, here's your golden ticket. 500 casino spins on a featured game. Just sign up with code IANBICK and wager $5 to claim your spins. Don't miss out. Join DraftKings Casino, where the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Connecticut and Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Non-withdrawable casino spins valid for featured game only and expire in 168 hours. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends 4/27/25 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. What do your parents do for work?
So my father, he's retired now, but he still works here and there as he can. He spent his career in the granite sheds, which is why I wanted to follow his footsteps. He taught me some stuff when he had his own business, and I had done some work in the granite sheds. My mother worked. She worked for the state police. Worked at the state police barracks. I think she was a dispatcher when I was young. Now she works on the 911 board, but ever since COVID hit, she works from home. So, my upbringing, I had good parents that tried to give me a good life. They obviously had their own issues, which I didn't realize took a toll on me until later in life. And nothing really happened outside of just the family dilemmas and stuff until I was probably 11 or 12 is where things started to happen for me. And there's a lot of things. I got to be careful about certain things I talk about on here. And there's certain things that I've left out of my stories in the past that I try to work on my past traumas these days, and part of that's talking about it. So there are some things that I will share. So I had gotten, I think what really changed the course for me was not too long after my parents had moved to Williamstown, we had some neighbors that were friends, and they had a son, and I hung out, with their son, and he actually ended up molesting me as a young kid. He was older than me. He was 13 at the time, and I was 10, 11. He was bigger than me. There wasn't a lot I could do, and he would force me to do certain things, and it bothered me that I had gone to my mother about it, and it seemed like nothing got done about it, and it just, like, nobody took it serious. But I had so much anger built up in me over that, and so much confusion, and I really developed anger problems and started acting out, and really it's where my story began. And not too long after that, I started smoking weed and drinking at a young age, 12, 13 years old. Started smoking cigarettes, drinking with friends, smoking weed. And as a lot of people figure out with that stuff, it suppresses some of those feelings, suppresses anger or trauma or depression or whatever, anxiety. It makes you forget those things, and it's mind-altering substances. They alter your mind, they alter your emotions, and I fell into that pretty quick, but nothing hard. It started like it probably starts for a lot of people. Well, I'll drink and smoke weed, but I'm never going to do pills. Well, okay, well, now I'm doing pills, but I'll never do coke. And next thing you know, you're doing coke. Okay, but I'll never do heroin. I'll never use a needle. And it just, before you know it, you're a full-blown addict. But I never touched the hard drugs until I found out about my father. And I was pretty slick with it, how I found out. I knew that my parents fought a lot, and I didn't know what was going on, but I'd know my mother would go looking for my father, trying to find him down in Barrie, and he'd be at the crack spots or whatever. And I knew that when they got home, they always went out in the garage to talk. They didn't want to talk about stuff around me. So I went out in the garage, and we had an intercom system back then. This was the early 2000s. And so I stuck a tack. I wedged a tack in the intercom system for the talk button so that I could sit inside and listen. It's funny. I laugh about it now. It wasn't funny at the time at all. But listening to their conversation in the house is how I figured out that my father had a drug problem with crack cocaine. And, it threw me for a whirl. I never expected that out of him, and I didn't like drugs. I didn't like the hard drugs. I wasn't ever planning on them being a part of my story. I was trying to stick to the smaller stuff. And after I found out about him is when I think I started to dabble with the harder things, and I got into pills at a young age, 14 years old. Around the same time, I was 14 when I found out about my father, and I was 14 when I started doing pills. And back then, what really, for my area, what really did it was the Suboxone, the buprenorphine came into. I'm sure there's probably bup in jail when you were in there, or I'm sure people have talked about it. You know what it is?
No, I've just heard of Suboxone.
It's I guess some people call it as a synthetic heroin, but it's a treatment-related medication that people use to get off of opiates and heroin and stuff like that. but it was cheap, and it came to, once it hit the streets of Barrie, everybody was doing it because you could get these pills for $5 a piece, and all you needed was an eighth of that pill, and you were fucked. You were fucked up. You were rocked all day long. And it was all fun and games back then for us. Little did we know we were all turning into heroin addicts, one step at a time. And yeah, it took a toll with a lot of things. I had also started boxing. My father got clean in 2006. He's been clean ever since. I mean, he drank and, does the edibles. Sometimes he makes edibles and stuff, but he's been clean from the crack and the cocaine since 2006. He's done really well with it. But we started boxing. He got me into boxing. I come from a long line of boxers in my family. And that was a hobby that I was good at and I got recognized for. And I stuck with it because I was good at it. And there wasn't a lot of things that I was good at. I was always trying to fit in. When I got to that preteen age, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted people to like me. And there wasn't a lot that I got recognized for outside of math and boxing. The math skills came into play when I became a drug dealer. We'll get into that. But the boxing was, really important to me for a while. And I went to a boxing club out in Hardwick, Vermont. That was the closest one we had. And there was the owner, which was a trainer there. There was another trainer there named Jimmy Sheridan, and he picked me out of the whole club. He said I was the best prospect he had at that gym, and he wanted me to travel around New England and compete in Golden Gloves and do all that stuff. And I was turning a new leaf. I was on a better track, and just one day, my trainer had a brain aneurysm and passed away, and after that, I just got tuned off of boxing for a while. Went back to doing bad shit, doing drugs and partying. And I played other sports as a kid, basketball, soccer. I was really into soccer. I played spring soccer, fall soccer, indoor soccer in the wintertime. So, 3 seasons out of the year I was playing soccer, and I was pretty good at it. Probably could have gone somewhere if I stuck with it, but I didn't. But yeah, so after I started going back the wrong route, serious things started to happen. For the area that I live in. It's a small area, but there was situations with some friends of mine when we were 14, 15 years old. A buddy of mine, his dad, there was a dispute over drugs with him and some other people, and somebody owed my buddy's dad money, and my buddy's dad paid a couple of our buddies $500 to lure him into this car where they were just gonna beat him up. So my friends did that, and long story short, they did more than just beat him up. They ended up killing him. And something like that happening in a small area like that, situations like that didn't happen often. And it hit close to home because it was friends that I grew up with. It was close friends. We were 14, 15 years old, and now they're roped into this murder, this murder over drugs. And, it was just all people that I knew and associated with. And, it was pretty messed up. My buddy's dad, he, after after they killed the guy, his name was Bichis, the guy that was killed. But after they killed him, my buddy, his dad that ordered the hit and that did the killing wanted, he made him clean out the car, even made him throw a rock on his head to make sure he was actually done. A 14-year-old kid, you're making your kid do that type of shit. It's pretty fucked up. But yeah, that's where things started to, we started to really get involved with bad shit. And I started selling drugs at a young age, 15 years old, just started off selling weed. I had friends that were into coke and stuff, and my friends that, were involved with the killing, they, some of us knew what happened before the police did. It took a while for it to come out, but they had gotten into cocaine, and I just remember them just turning in. It looked like they were the Walking Dead. They were just dropped so much weight, and they were skinny and just faces all sunken in, and it I was like, why would people want to fucking do this shit? It's like looking like death. And I understand now they were suppressing everything, what they went through at a young age. It's a big thing to go through at a young age. And I was with them the day that they got taken down for it. And yeah, it was just, it really, like I said before, I mean, it really had a strong impact on me, and it played a role into my own trauma. There was, I'm trying to think of which direction I want to go with this, because so much happened for me around the ages of 14 to 15 years old. So about 15 years old, I started to sell more than just weed. I guess selling pills, selling, Klonopins and Bupe seemed to be what everybody wanted. So that's what I was distributing. And, it was just localized at that point. I hadn't branched off yet to other states, other cities, bigger people. I hadn't yet gotten there. But I had a buddy that, and before I say this, I had gotten my hands on a gun at a young age. I was 14, 15 years old. A couple of my buddies robbed the house, found a gun, sold it for cheap. I bought it. It was a old 45 Haskell, like high point piece of shit. But I felt like I was big and bad. I had this gun. I was 14, 15 years old. I mean, the fucker was so heavy I couldn't even keep it in my waist. It was bringing my pants to my ankles trying to carry this thing around. But buying that gun was probably the worst thing I could have done at that time. I had a friend that had, gotten into his own drug debt with some people, and, the people were not really people that were people to mess with. And he was pretty nervous about the fact that they were coming for him, and they did come for him. And where my story really turned was, when they came for him to collect the money, you got to keep in mind, the situation, the Bichis situation with my friends and that whole killing thing that had happened, it was still fresh. It was still very fresh. This was 2006. It was in the same year. This same year this stuff happened. And maybe things had gone different had that situation not happened. But because that situation happened, you know, now it's a possibility like they might kill my friend over this money. You know, that's what I just died over, was a drug debt. And I had my gun, and when they came for him, you know, my first instinct was to make sure that he didn't die. And I made the choice to do what I had to do to protect him. And I didn't, I really haven't talked about this much, so bear with me.
You're doing great, brother.
And, you know, like I said, I got to word things a certain way. So, yes, I intentionally did what I did. I pulled the trigger. I didn't intend for the person to not walk away. But I fully intended on shooting. I just didn't, you know, I meant to shoot to harm, to shoot to scare. I didn't mean for it to go the way it did. Just keep it at that. And that really sent me in the wrong direction. You know, you constantly looking over your shoulder, and you know, obviously we were young. There was some further help with that situation, but you know, being that young and experiencing these things, you know, you're scarred for life. And I think about it a lot. You know, would I do it differently if it were to happen again? No, I wouldn't. You know, not that I want to go back to prison, you know, but if I was protecting somebody I loved or cared about, you know, I'd do what I had to do. It's a crazy world we live in. So that happened, and you know, I got into harder drugs, looking over my shoulder all the time. And I mean, even still to this day, you know, I think about that all the time. And it came up and bit me in the ass, you know, throughout my sobriety before, you know. You know, maybe it's just a nightmare that you have, or maybe you watched the wrong episode of the first 48, or, you know, just the thought could pop up. You know, it's a lot for somebody that age. It's a lot for anybody in general. I mean, I don't think of myself as a cold-blooded killer. I'm loyal. I care, but when I care about somebody, I care about them. And, you know, so anyways, I started to sell, you know, harder drugs, pills, got into the cocaine stuff, and I started, you know, and the school thing wasn't really working out for me. I got into a lot of fights. I got busted at school selling drugs a few times. And, you know, I spent more time getting kicked out of school than I spent in school actually paying attention. And I spent a lot of my time with the wrong people and the wrong crowds, which gained me attention from the wrong people, but it gained me the attention I was looking for. Like I said before, I always just wanted to fit in. I always felt like I was the nice guy finishing last with everything, whether it was girls, whether it was sports, whether it was anything. I just felt like I didn't compare to everybody else around me. And there was nothing that I was good at that got me recognized for anything. I just wanted to get recognized. And I'm sure a lot of kids can relate to that. But I started getting recognized by the wrong people. Because at this point, you know, you got the crack, the cocaine, heroin's kind of trickling in, but you got the dealers coming from other places. You got all these city people coming in because Vermont's a big moneymaker. It's a hub. It's where everybody goes to make their money, because you buy shit in the city, whether it's, you know, Springfield, Hartford, New York, whatever. You're buying shit in the cities and you're coming to Vermont and you're selling it for 3-4 times the amount. So I started getting recognized from, you know, city people, and I started spending more time with them, and I got real close with blood members. You know, yeah, I was a white kid hanging out with all these black kids, and everybody called me a fucking wankster and this and that, whatever. I started dealing with these people, and I made my first city trip. I was 16 years old, you know, that I actually went and got involved with stuff with that. And I actually joined the Bloods at a very young age. You know, it's a lot of misconceptions with the Bloods and the Crips and the gang shit. I'm not gonna get into. There's a lot of political shit I'm not gonna get into with it, but the West Coast and East Coast are two different fractions. They're two different things. A lot of people think you're white, you can't join the Bloods. You can't join the Crips. You can't, you know, whatever. If you're not black, you're not joining. Yes, on the West Coast, that's usually how it goes. But in the East Coast, things are a lot different. You know, the East Coast Bloods started up in 1990s, Rikers Island, basically because of, biggest factor was the fact that the Latin Kings that were founded in Chicago had made their way to upstate New York prisons and were branching out. And you know, yeah, people think of Crips being the biggest enemy of the Bloods, which they are in certain aspects, but the Latin Kings became a big problem in the prison systems as well. So Rikers Island started up, you know, the East Coast Bloods, United Blood Nation, to recruit and have some protection and people to go against the Latin Kings. And they'd recruit, I mean, there's any ethnicity you can think of. I mean, on the East Coast, you see people joining everything. You know, I took a 31-second jump to get in, and did a lot of, you know, favors and a lot of work that, you know, they put the young bucks on to do. And I didn't care. I didn't care what I was doing. I didn't care how much trouble I was going to get in, because I was getting recognized for things and I fit in. Like, I finally felt like I was fitting into something that was important, you know, and it just, I didn't know what I was getting into by any means.
What does a 31-second jump mean?
It's not what comes with every initiation. Some sets or members might have you do certain things. Sometimes 31-second jump, 31 is a number that is used by United Blood Nation for many things. There's 31 rules. There's 31, 31-second jump to get in. A lot of people, if they want to leave, take a 31-second jump out. But a lot of people say you never get out if it's blood in, blood out. I took the 31-second jump in by 5 members, and that was that. And I felt like I was part of the family. And I started selling drugs for more people, dealing with bigger amounts, dealing with bigger people in bigger places. And the downside to that is dealing with bigger quantities of drugs, bigger money, bigger people, bigger places comes with bigger consequences when bad things happen. And there's been a lot of things that have happened. My stuff wasn't gang related or drug related when I was stabbed. It was just wrong place, wrong time situation. But there was a lot of things that I don't want to say I had to do them. I mean, technically, yeah, if I was asked to do something, I had to do it. But there was a lot of things that I was just willing to do. I just wanted to do it. I volunteered to do certain things. You know, you got somebody that owes you money. I'll go collect that money. Or you got somebody that you want stuck up. I'll be the stick up kid. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I wanted to do that. You know, I wasn't ordered to do everything that I did, but it all comes back to that recognition. It got me that recognition.
Do you think that's something you lacked by your parents, especially after, you know, your childhood trauma, getting molested and your mom not really supporting you through that situation? Do you think this was your way of like getting back at them?
I don't want to say that it was to get back at them. But yeah, I think maybe some of it had to do with what I lacked at home. And I'm not to say anything bad about my parents, because my parents are wonderful people, but I think over the years of my mother just being so invested in what my father had going on, and that whole situation until I was 14 years old, I wasn't getting the attention there that, you know, your regular kid would have got. And, you know, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that probably played a role in why I was seeking recognition from other people. Like I said, it didn't have to be gang members. It didn't have to be, I mean, it could have been girls. It could have been whatever. I just wanted to feel like I fit in. You know, I just wanted to feel like I was somebody. And being from Vermont, that lifestyle, it's appealing to a lot of people. There's a lot of drug dealers that are in Vermont that are local people that will never do the city thing. They think they're kingpins. I mean, for fuck's sakes, me and my friend, we were 14, 15 years old. I remember selling weed. I think he was younger than that, 13 years old. And you know, we bought an ounce and we sold it, and then we did it again. And, you know, we're a couple weeks into it. We're running 20 bags here and there. And I remember just one night we're high and I'm sitting there telling my buddy, I'm like, we run this shit. You know, we run this town. Like, we're just fucking nickel and diamond weed, you know, like we're not no big shots. But it was just my math skills too. I was always good at math growing up. You know, I was in advanced math classes in school, and that helped me with drug dealing. You know, that was my main go-to over the years, was selling drugs, because I always had it like that, and I didn't ever need the money for it because I had the connections for it. You know, it's like every time that I got out of prison, or, you know, say I got put in rehab or wherever, I could come home. You know, I was, you know, yeah, I jumped through the hoops and did what I had to do to let them think that I wanted a new life or whatever. I didn't. I was just anxious to get back home. And I always had connections that I could just be like, hey, I need to get back on my feet. Here you go. You know, give me a bunch of work to sell. Or, you know, here's a car. You just got home. Here's a car. Here's some work. Here's this and that. I never needed money for any of that stuff, so it was easy for me. And, you know, it's just, I had so much potential for so much other shit growing up that I could have actually made it somewhere with. You know, I tried picking the boxing back up at you know, later on in my teenage years, and did the MMA thing as an adult and stuff. You know, as just nothing serious. But the big thing going for me that became my new normal was just being a drug dealer. And I started losing friends, you know, not just friends as in like people who just didn't want to be around me anymore, but the drugs started to take a lot of people, you know, as they still do these days. And people dropping like flies from it. And
did you want to go off to college at all? Did you have aspirations?
Only reason I wanted to go to college was for the parties. That was it. My mother was like, I'm not paying for you to go to college so you can party. It's not going to happen. And
would they have paid for college or no?
If I had done the right things and stayed in school, not been a troublemaker and done the right things, yeah, they might have paid for me to go to college. But I got to the point, like I said before, where I just spent so much time kicked out of school that I was, the college thing was not going to happen. I mean, I had to do, the only option really left for me that they gave me was to go to tech center, which, I went for media and communications to do the video stuff, to write scripts and storyboards, film our own videos. That was in Randolph Tech Center in Vermont. And it was cool because we got to go off school grounds. We got to, we basically just went and smoked weed, made our own videos, just stupid shit. But it was fun. And I was into that stuff, young. Me and my friends, we used to make, because Jackass was big in the early 2000s. I'm sure you remember. So everybody wanted to do the Jackass videos and the stupid shit. God, we did some dumb shit. I mean, Roman candle fights and bottle rocket fights.
We used to take bottle rockets, take the stems off, put them in a circle facing outwards, blow torch the center of like 200 bottle rockets, and then we called them ass chasers. So
and you run in different directions?
Exactly.
Yeah, we did
and then
the
we would
same
shoot
thing.
Roman candles at each other. I actually had Brandon Novak on the show from the Jackass series.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he was on last November, or 2 years ago, because we're in 25 now.
Oh, no shit. Maybe I'm sure I did see that.
Yeah, he was telling crazy stories about, like fucking giving head for drugs and this and that. Crazy. Yeah, one of my good friends growing up, I never was really into the Jackass stuff, but I would see like the YouTube videos when YouTube was first like becoming a thing. And one of my friends was obsessed with all those videos, and they would always do crazy stuff. We'd have like the Razor scooters going down the hill really fast, the dirt bikes, all that.
Shopping carts and the
ass chasers are fun though, and the Roman candles, bro.
Yeah, we did that. My parents' deck, we'd line up a bunch of them, the bottle rockets, and light them, and then all take off down the lawn and see who gets hit or who doesn't. Or I had this PVC bazooka thing that I'd put the bottle rockets in, and I'd try to, get my buddies with it, or we'd, smash each other with the fluorescent light bulbs and
potato launchers and all that.
Yeah, the potato cannons. My buddy had one of those, and I was a bit of a pyro too, so I was,
self-proclaimed pyro.
Yeah, I lit a lot of things on fire, and I got into, making M80s and all kinds of stuff. I got into the pyrotechnics a little bit. Because you can make the flash powder that they use. I probably shouldn't even give that tutorial.
You ever do SD's rockets?
SDs?
Yeah, it was called SD's rockets, where you build your own rocket, and then it had like a little stick.
Oh, like the model rockets?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was like a dynamite stick or whatever that would go in it, and you had the wire that goes up into the fuse. You hit the button, and it shoots in the air, and then it parachutes out.
Yeah.
We loved those things as kids.
Yep, I remember doing those shops. After watching October Sky. I wanted to get into those. Was that what that movie was called?
October
Sky?
Never saw it.
About the rockets?
Never saw it.
Yeah, I think it was.
Sounds like a James Bond movie, October Sky.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so it was, I was just a troublemaker. I was the class clown. Everybody laughed at me in school, and that's, another thing I was good at, being the class clown. And once I started getting busted selling drugs at school is when I really started to lack a lot, because I was missing a lot of time. I was getting in a lot of fights, like I mentioned before, and I went to the tech center to have that hopefully be an option. I didn't last long there. Maybe like half the year. Maybe like half the year I lasted there, and got into drugs pretty bad, and I went on the run. I had a girlfriend at my house that was on the run. She was in foster care, and I had her hiding out at my house. The state police came and got her, and And my mother was just not having the shit that I was doing. And I went on the run, didn't go back to school, and I was making city trips. I started out going to Manchester at a young age, city trips. Moved up to Hartford, Connecticut, and then to Springfield, Mass, and eventually Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
And yeah, my only hope for graduating high school was to do adult basic education. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah. That's at night, right?
It's well, they did it at night or during the day. But I went to it. I didn't even have to do it for a whole year. I mean, I was really behind. I was a junior at this point. I did it like half the year and busted my ass with it. And I ended up graduating a year early, actually, which probably pissed a lot of people off because I graduated from the school I was going to out in Williamstown. And I graduated a year early. So there was a lot of people that were probably like, what the fuck? This kid like fucked off his whole school career. Why are we watching him graduate a year early? I was the first person in my family to graduate. My father didn't graduate. My mother didn't graduate. So it was a big deal. Like they wanted me to graduate and I made it there. I graduated. And pretty much, yeah, I wanted to join the Marines. But what led me to prison shot down that opportunity. But so I started spending, most of my time selling, I was still selling drugs and hanging out with the wrong people and doing things I shouldn't have been doing, I wasn't a monster, but I sure did some monstrous things. And I think the one point between 14 and 18 that I actually tried to get my shit together was I had a girlfriend that became pregnant. We were 15, 16 years old. Well, no, there's two pregnancies. There was one when I was 15. Me and my best friend, he's like a brother of mine. We were messing with the same chick around the same time. She ended up pregnant. And I'm like, well, who's the dad, So and we decided, okay, if you're the dad, I'm the godfather. If I'm the dad, you're the godfather. And it's one of those things. Baby came out. Wasn't mine. It's my godson. But I had another girl that I started seeing from down in Brattleboro, Vermont. She ended up pregnant. And, we were young, 16 years old, and my parents, my mother, surprisingly let her move in with us because I kind of preached the damage is done thing. So, she ended up moving in with us and, I got a job, started working and tried to leave the street life to the side because I wanted to do good. I had a kid on the way and she ended up miscarrying in her second trimester and we broke up after that and, that took a toll on me. I was happy that I was going to be a dad and when that happened, it just, I just lost all interest in even doing anything good with myself. And, I let the boxing go about 17 years old. But I was so heavily involved with these, with the Bloods and the drug dealing and just that way of living. I was fine with that. I didn't want to change anything about it. I didn't expect to make it to 30 years old. Here I am, 33. It was just, everything was just so appealing to me. It was quick, easy money, and I was good at it. So why stop? Then I got with a very toxic individual that I spent the next 3 years off and on with. And I started to, burglarize houses and, You know, I used to do burglaries like it was going out of style. I mean, every day. That was my job during the week. I would, usually between, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. is when I'd go hit houses every day of the week without fail. Because, most people are at work by 10 o'clock. And then, by the time 2 o'clock comes, they're coming home, whether they're working 6 to 2s, 7 to 3s, 8 to 4s, 9 to 5s. I utilized those hours and started robbing houses. And
are these nice neighborhoods or?
Everything from right in Barry City to out in the boons. I call it the boons, out in the sticks. Those were kind of the good ones because there wasn't a lot of people around, wasn't a lot of houses around out in the sticks. You got a house every quarter fucking mile, so a lot of them like to leave their doors unlocked. You didn't have to break in. You let yourself in because they didn't lock their doors. They didn't think there was a reason to. But don't get me wrong. I would do stuff right in the city, right in midday. I did it for quite a while, but at some point I got sick of the hit or miss of it. Even though I still had my income from selling drugs, I got sick of the hit or miss. And where things really went wrong for me was intravenous drug use. Once I picked up the needle, I gave my ex, that toxic one, kind of an ultimatum. I saw that she was doing it. And I told her, I watched what she was doing. I was like, if you don't do it for me, I'm going to do it myself and I might mess this up. So that's where things really start to go wrong, because once I felt that feeling the first time, and I think I only shot Suboxone, it was the white bube. But feeling that feeling, I wanted that again. I'm like, and I never, mind you, I always said I was never going to use a needle. But I did. And, here it is, midnight. And I'm like, we need more money. Like, I need to get more. I want to do that again. And, the hit or miss, the burglaries wasn't optimal at that time. So I'm like, all right, what can I do for money right now at this time of night? It's after midnight. So I ended up robbing a convenience store because that was pretty much the quickest thing I could think of. There's a Cumberland Farms down, the other side of town. So I ended up going with one of the guns that I had gotten in one of the burglaries. There was this burglar. I like to do things on my own. I didn't do a lot of things with people because just less people, less talking. So there's one house that I had spent probably an hour in trying to get into this fucking gun safe. And I ended up with a number of guns out of that. So, I didn't plan on hurting anybody or anything with this robbery, but I needed money and I needed it now. I didn't need it. I wanted it. I wasn't selling a lot of drugs at that time. I was more doing them. And yeah, I went to Cumberland Farms and I figured it'd be one of the night shift people that was in there. It happened to actually be one of the day shift people covering a shift. It was a chick that I talked to a lot. I mean, I had my face covered and everything. She didn't know who it was, but I worked up the balls to go in there. I went in. She was at the coffee pots. I pulled the gun out and, told her to give me all the money, out of the registers now. Get over the registers. And I held her at gunpoint and I made her empty both the drawers and she told her to give me a carton of Marlboros and I said thank you and left.
You said thank you.
Yeah, I said thank you. I was polite about it. I said thank you. All for a total not even $200. I robbed this convenience store.
How scary is it in that moment pulling off a robbery like that? Like, is your heart racing really fast?
Oh, fuck yeah. It felt like I was watching a movie. It was, I had done other things that were similar, like robbing other drug dealers and shit, sticking up people. And that's the thing, like being involved with these people from other cities while I was there. Sometimes I would do dirty work because who's going to expect somebody from Vermont, some white boy from Vermont, to be the one doing this shit here? I never had a worry that I was going to get caught for a fucking thing because the cops also don't go hard for drug dealers. What are you going to do? Call the cops and say somebody just jacked my fucking stash? So that's what I stuck to. But when I was in Vermont, in a smaller area, in a smaller city, you got to be really careful with what you're doing. So yeah, it was like watching a movie. Once I made the decision, like, okay, now's the time, it was like my body just took over and I was just watching. And yeah, the adrenaline from that, it was wild. I mean, the main focus was just don't get caught, make it back to the spot. That was it. And I did, and money didn't last long. So I, for the next month and a half, spent selling drugs and doing more burglaries and robberies and just, I hadn't done another store yet. I was thinking about it, but I also noticed that people were also talking and word was getting around. And what had happened was the place where I had been staying at that time, I had passed out with a lot of the evidence on the floor, and the chick that I was staying with, she took pictures of it. I should have brought my discovery packet, but she took pictures of the gun and the cigarettes and the money, and she put my ID in the picture and like really fucked me hard.
Why would she do that?
Just an asshole, just a miserable bitch. And this wasn't even, nothing had even hit the papers yet. Like, she just took these because she probably assumed I did something. She didn't know what I had done. But, the article came out in the news not too long after, and she took that stuff down there and gave a big, long statement. There was, the amount of people that went and said shit that was just hearsay was ridiculous. But there was all these people I knew that were in my discovery packet, that said all this stuff like they knew for a fact it was me. They didn't know shit. Yeah, it was me, but they didn't know that. And, so I had gotten rolled on for that in 2010. It was 2010 I pulled it off, wintertime. And a month and a half later is when they ended up rolling on me for that. And, I'd had some situations before where, I was at places where people came to raid, but I managed to get out where there was a window or, a door that led somewhere else. And I was, remember I was at the old Dunkin' Donuts by the courthouse where it used to be in Barrie. And, I was standing there with, before I get to this, but that same day, the day before, my buddy had robbed his cousin of $1,000, took it out of his top dresser drawer, and, came to buy some shit and wanted to buy my Glock that I had, and, we were kind of partying or whatever the night before, and, that next morning, his cousin found out he was at my house, so he brought somebody else with him, and they came in my basement door where my bedroom was, and went straight for him, started beating the shit out of him. And I had sold him the Glock. I still had it under my couch, but he wanted to buy it. I sold it to him, and his cousin asked him for the money. You know, he was beating the shit out of him pretty good. And he gave him what he had for the money. He said, where's the rest of it? And he's like, Dylan's got it. And I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, you know, and because I had what he gave me for the gun. And once they turned to me, I'm like, all right, you know. So they asked me for the money. It was in my wallet underneath my couch. I had a pull-out sofa couch thing in my room. And I looked under the couch, and it's like, you know, one of them fucking ads you see for them games where it stops and you got like, you know, you can click on this choice or that choice. And because I had the gun here, I had the wallet here, I'm like, all right, so, you know, my first instinct is to grab the gun and just shoot these motherfuckers because they're in my house, you know. I have every right, not thinking it's a stolen fucking firearm. And, you know, I contemplated it in my head. Everything went quick. It was slow in my head, but it was quick thinking. But I decided to just give the money back. And, you know, then my buddy's cousin punched him one more time and said, you got 24 hours to get me the rest of the money, and da-da-da. So after that happened, he had left and he was supposed to go. I was at my parents' house at this point in Williamstown. This wasn't where I was staying full time. At that point, I was staying with my friends Tasha and Kyle. Well, Kyle wasn't there anymore, but my friend Tasha down on Granite Street in Barrie. I said, well, I'm not selling you this gun because now the money's gone. I had to give the money back. So he was all worried they were going to be waiting for him and catch him down the road somewhere. So he asked if he could borrow it. I lent it to him, told him to bring it to Tasha's. So you better leave it there. Like, don't fuck me over on this because everybody's shitbags from where I'm from. And, you know, I went back to sleep, didn't think anything of it. I expected when I got to town, he would have left it there and all that, you know, everything. So I am at Dunkin' Donuts on the day I get busted. And, well, day they smoked me for my armed robbery. I say smoked, you know, don't get it twisted. I know I've gotten some backlash from people like, oh, don't be using smoked for, you know, smoked means you got killed, this and that. No, I got smoked. It was game over for me. Like, I got smoked on that robbery. I was standing at Dunkin' Donuts with people. I had just gone to the bathroom and shot up, and I come outside and there's cops over here, there's cops over here, there's some more getting ready to pull in. And I said to the people I'm with, I was like, I have a bad feeling right now. And the guy's like, you know, he's like, don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong. We're just standing here. And like, he doesn't know what the fuck I've been doing. Next thing I know, cops pulling from all directions, guns out, got me on my face within, you know, no time, because I wasn't about to fight with them. I weren't about to run. There was they had canine units. I wasn't getting bit in the ass. You know, I wasn't trying to do all that. So they take me down to the station. Well, before that, I'm sitting in the cruiser. They're dumping out my backpack, dump out all the syringes. Everybody's seeing what I got. It was just completely embarrassed the fuck out of me, you know, because I was trying to keep that shit secret from people. Nobody wants people knowing that they're injecting shit, especially, you know, I was 18 years old. I was young. Wasn't my first run-in with the law. I had previous sentences I had completed for selling drugs, because I got knocked at school at 15 selling individual dime bags of weed. And then the next year, for my sophomore year, I got busted selling pills and marijuana. And I took off from the school and I got caught, and they came and they charged me with possession of marijuana, possession of narcotics, and selling and dispensing on school property, which was a felony, and they were charging me as an adult because I was 16. You know, and I was a little peckerhead telling them, get the fuck out of my house, fuck you, da, da, da. And my dad's telling me not to say anything. And so I had previous run-ins with that. That was my like one diversion, my one ticket, like the diversion card thing that I had gotten for that. I still had restrictions and stuff and things I had to do, community service or whatever. But yeah, so I'm sitting in the cruiser. They got me. I don't know what I'm picked up for. And I hear on the scanners that they're at my place on Granite Street I've been staying. And they said, looks like the house is occupied. We're gonna go in now. And I'm like, fuck. It's like they're raiding the house. Like they're about to raid the apartment. They're gonna find a fucking gun. Like that was my biggest worry. They were about to find this fucking stolen firearm. Little did I know, my buddy burned me and didn't go bring the gun back. And that's the only person that's burned me that I've actually thanked. But yeah, they raided the place, flipped it upside down, didn't find what they were looking for. But I'm down at the station and, you know, the detective comes in, he's talking to me, you know, saying how we know that you're using drugs and people sometimes do stupid things for money and sometimes they go out car shopping and whatever. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like, this dude's coming at me because of some measly car shopping shit that I've done. Like, 'cause, you know, we used to do that shit too when I was young, go car shopping. Everybody left their cars unlocked. The big thing back then was the GPSs and the fucking, you know, you always got cool shit from people's cars. So I'm thinking it's something small, you know, he's going on and on. He's like, and then some people might take a bad turn and decide to do some more serious things like rob a Cumberland Farms. And I'm like, yeah, you think I did that too, huh? I'm like being all cocky, thinking I can outsmart these pricks. And I was like, yeah, I know. A lot of people thought that was me. And the detective, he's like, I know it was you, you know? And he starts bringing in all this evidence, which at the time, I didn't know their evidence was shit. You know, he had said that I got picked out in a photo lineup and we had these statements from these people and this and that. And I wasn't really paying attention. I was in the twilight zone, like, I'm fucked, you know, like I'm screwed. And I figured the best thing to do, because he was giving me the spiel like, you know, the hand on my arm, like, just come clean. You know, we know you have a drug problem. You're not a menace. You're not a monster. You did it to support your habit. Just admit your guilt and we will help you through this. We'll be there for you through the court process. We'll go to bat for you. And so I decided, yeah, you know, I have a drug problem. I did this to support my habit. It was a broken BB gun. It wasn't even a real gun. You know, I wasn't going to hurt anybody. And I told them where I threw the broken BB gun, and which wasn't, it was just a fake story, whatever. I figured if it's a BB gun, I get less time. You know, they don't give a shit. You don't get caught with a firearm. It doesn't matter what it was. If you don't get caught, it's a firearm, it's a fucking armed robbery, and the armed robbery from a regular robbery steps it up. You got mandatory minimums with armed shit. So at that point, I knew I was screwed, kind of accepted it, and, you know, here I am, 18 years old, landing in prison, you know, the big boy jails. I never went to juvie, you know, but...
How much time did they give you for that?
So I ended up with a 3 to 7 that they suspended all except for, it started out with like, all right, so when I got picked up, I went in, I was in for whatever, 3 or 4 months, and then I got bailed out. My grandmother passed away and my mother bailed me out. I had to go straight to rehab from jail. And, you know, rehab, I've been to rehab fucking 12, 13 times over the years. You know, it used to be a couple months stays when I was adolescent. I went as adolescent twice to this rehab. It's a lockdown facility, like alarms on the doors, you can't leave, you run, the cops are coming for you type shit. I had gone there a couple times prior to that, but I got bailed out to go to rehab. It was a straight shots rehab from the jail. completed the program, got out, and I spent the next, I'd say probably at least a year, maybe more, between the time I got bailed out and the time I got sentenced. And you'd think in that time I'd be on my A game, on my best behavior. I wasn't at all. There was no good behavior my way. I managed to not get put back in between. Well, no, I went back once because I got caught past curfew. I got caught out past curfew, but they didn't hold me long because I was out of gas and I needed to get gas. That wasn't the real reason I was late, but I had the gas cans in my car and it was a good story, whatever. I hadn't gone back since. So, after I saw the judge and everything, they sent me back out. And do you want the stories of the in-between from when I got bailed out and when I went back first? Or do you want to know, just the time I did first?
It's up to you, man. Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
So, I guess, so all in all, the thing is, with the suspended sentence, you do the time that they set, and then if you reoffend, they can send you back to do the rest of your minimum or the rest of the fucking time you got. However much time they want, but it's open-ended. When you're on a high-risk probation like that, you know what furlough is?
Yeah. So
we have furlough in Vermont. And FSU, go around, check on you. I was on high-risk probation. So I got checked up on and all that stuff. They checked up on me. I was on an ankle monitor a few times when I got out between the times. It's hard to say, all in all. But the thing with it, the open-ended sentences like that is you don't have an end date. So it's kind of like when they expect you to fail, they're going to stick you on a type of sentence like that because they're like, okay, well, we can stay fucking with him the rest of his life if we want. It might have been a 3 to 7 year suspended sentence, but it didn't mean that after the 7 years I was going to be done. It just meant that was the sentence. I'm on probation till further order of the court. And I went back for my sentencing to spend a few more months to make the 6 month. I think it was a 6-month mark. And I got out, but I never stayed out very long. I never went very long without reoffending. I racked up over the course of my time with DOC, I racked up 8 or 9 violations that I went back for every time. It was usually, they give you sanctions. They give you a 60-day sanction or a 30-day sanction, maybe 90-day sanction, whatever. And then in between all these sanctions, I also had all these rehab stays that I had. And, I was institutionalized by the time I was 18 years old, just between the rehab stays I had prior to that and being in when I first got put in. And, it didn't do anything for me except make me a better criminal going in. It didn't. Life was good in there after I detoxed, when I initially went. All my friends were there that I grew up with. Because we were all fuck-ups and we were all doing illegal shit. We were all in there around the same time when I initially got put in. So there really wasn't anything bad about it. Yeah, you had your fights, you had your people you had to worry about, people like strong arm people, take your shit, whatever. There's not a lot of stabbings going on in the Vermont jails or cuttings, especially since they took the Bick razors off commissary. Believe it or not, there was a point in time you could order razors off commissary.
We have those in the feds.
Did you?
Yeah, but so the ironic part is the ones on the commissary were better to shave with, but the state issued ones that they give you, these orange ones, were easier to pop the blade out because the Bic
Yeah.
razors weren't that great to pop or was harder.
Yeah.
But the state issued ones, if you break off like the end plastic, the guard on it, it's a single blade. That's what people would use to cut vegetables or as a weapon.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that what they give you for free is the weapon and what they sell you on commissary is not the weapon.
Yeah, no, they didn't stay on commissary long.
Was there a lot of bloods in that prison?
I mean, you got some here and there because a lot of the people that are up here selling drugs, well, not here, but in Vermont selling drugs, eventually they get caught, they get greedy and end up in the jails. So you had Bloods, you had Crips. I mean, I had a fucking prick cellmate that was a 8-tray gangster Crip. And yeah, we didn't. See, the thing is, Vermont's not a war zone like that. You're not worried about your ops. It's kind of like, I want to say it's like, it's almost neutral. I mean, I have friends that are Crips. I mean, there's not the war zones, the oppositions going on like there is in the cities. It's a lot of the gang members up here selling drugs. And, kind of like how things are different now. You've got umbrella organizations that have Bloods and Crips in the same gangs. You've got Woos and Chews in New York that had their umbrella organizations. They have Bloods, Crips, they have different gang members that are supposed to be ops in the same fucking gangs. It's different. But you didn't have like there wasn't a lot of issues over gang politics and shit in there. And Vermont jails are not politics. Just like we don't have any Fed pens in Vermont. We have, one of the prisons has a federal detainer unit. If you get Fed charges, you go to that unit until you're, until they take you off to wherever. I don't know if they're still sending people to Raybrook or what for classifications and all that stuff. I don't know where you went, but
yeah, I knew guys that went to Raybrook.
Yeah, or Cheshire. A lot of people send you to Cheshire.
Cumberland, I think.
Cumberland. Yep. UFC.
They had a camp there too. Guys would go to.
Yeah. Yep. Cumberland. That's Maryland, right?
I think so. That's out near you, right?
Maryland. FCI Maryland down in no, Maryland is down by like Delaware, New Jersey and shit. One of my good buddies was down there for a while. Kind of took a bid for me, but yeah, we don't have Fed pens in Vermont, and we don't have counties. And you know how like a lot of states, you got your county jails and then you got your state jails and your Fed jails. Vermont doesn't have counties. They have regionals. They don't have the counties and states. They have the regional jails. We have 6 correctional facilities in Vermont. One in Newport, one in St. Albans, one in Burlington, St. Johnsbury. Did I say Springfield yet? It's Springfield and Rutland. And they're regionals. Basically, whatever your region is, it's usually multiple counties. You go to that jail. And some jails, you're there for shorter stays, or if you have longer stays, they send you to one of the other ones that houses people for longer periods of time. Or if you get sentenced to a lot of time, we have contracts with out-of-state facilities. Right now, it used to be Kentucky, and then it was, I think, Greenfield, Mass. There was one that we were contracted with, and then there was Arizona, and that was the one I was getting threatened to go out to, and I didn't want to go out there because they were sending people out to this fucking tent city fucking place in Arizona where you're living in the desert in these tents. And Now it's Mississippi, somewhere in Mississippi. I've heard it's a shithole, but so yeah, if you get a lot of time, you're getting shipped out of state, basically. But so these regionals house everybody, from people violating their probation to murderers. You got everybody in there. So it's not just as simple as being in county and going to the state prison. So you see a lot of shit. But like I said, most of it's fights, strong arm, robberies. Couple people got cut over some dumb shit, ramen noodles and card games. It's just stupid shit. Everything, you know how it is. Things are different in there. But
how much time did you end up serving total?
All in all, I probably had, between all my stays combined and all my time served combined, maybe a little over 2 years. I didn't have to serve the whole 3 years on my sentence. I also, like I said, I also had a lot of stays in rehabs. The first 2 stays I had were a couple months each, and then the rehab stays shortened to a month stays, and then 3-week stays, and now they're 2-week stays, which I think is fucking bullshit. I mean, people are just barely detoxing off of that, you know, and then you're sending them back out in the street and wondering why it's the same people coming back. But, you know, I don't want to say that I didn't want another life, but I tried. Part of me wanted it. So usually I would ask to get my rehab stays extended to as far as I could get them extended to. When they were 3 or 2 weeks, I'd get them extended to a month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Doing time or being in facilities didn't bother me. So it was more of a home for me than anything else ever was, really. That's just a sad reality of it. A lot of people wouldn't understand that haven't done time and haven't been through the system, but I had a place for myself in prison. I had a place for myself in these rehabs. I knew people. I knew everybody. I was well respected in there, especially being my regional was all people I knew. Yeah, I had issues with some people. You're going to have that in prison. It's going to happen. But the reason I say I was institutionalized by 18 is because I had already done the rehab thing multiple times, and I had spent, these months in this prison with all my buddies that I grew up with. We didn't have any responsibilities. We played cards, took people's shit, making stews, football pools. Everything was genuine, None of us were strung out on drugs. We weren't paying attention to things we shouldn't have been. It's almost like we had those childhood friendships back, And that's what I try to explain to people is in there, you get your real friends back that you don't have in the streets, because all you have to do is spend time with each other and reminisce. And it's, my mother used to get pissed off at me. We'd be on the phone and I'd be laughing and joking about this, talking to my dad about that. My mother would get pissed off. She'd be like, it's not supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be doing time. You're not supposed to be having a good time in there. It's like, well, I'm not going to make my time miserable, And it was, I ended up getting in such a pattern of going back and forth that was my life. And I ended up spending more time in behind walls and behind bars in the same familiar place than I did at any one single place other than my parents when I was growing up as a kid. But I was out at a young age. I was out doing my own thing. 15 years old, I was moved out by 17. I had a couple places I stayed at or apartments that I had short term, but when I got locked up, it was always the same thing. You know, that was my home away from home, but my home. I had a place. I didn't care how long I had to do. I still miss it, for fuck's sakes. You know, it's been 10 years since I've been in a prison. It's been 10 years, and sometimes I still feel like it's been too long since I've been there. But I mean, I'm not gonna go reoffend just to go back, but it takes a while. Once you're in the system and in the cycle and going back and forth doing the same things, it's hard to break free from that. And that's why there's so many issues, because so many people get used to that cycle and it becomes just a fucking game. And that's what they're used to. And that's what I got used to. And
what's helped you stay on track over these past 10 years?
Well, I haven't been on track for 10 years, the whole 10 years. I haven't been in prison for 10 years, but
you've been trying your best.
I should have been. There's many things I should have done, or I should have gone for. One thing I was going to touch on was, how much time do we have?
You keep rolling.
So another thing that really fucked with me, like I was going to talk about before we got into how much time I did, was while I was on bail in 2011, you know, I was still doing dumb shit, home invasions, robbing dealers, and selling drugs. And I had a friend, he was one of my best friends at the time. I don't talk about this much. You know, I really just opened up about it in 2023, the last time that I got clean. And, you know, we hung out a lot, and you know, I was close with his kid and his mom, and you know, we were in, we had gotten done with IOP. You know what IOP is? Intensive outpatient. Usually when you leave a rehab, you got to do intensive outpatient, which is 3 times a week, 3 hours per session, where you got groups of people that are same boat as you, that are all, you know, drug addicts or just came from jail, rehab. And you do that, and then after 18 sessions of that, you go to a weekly relapse prevention group. And we were in the group together, and, you know, it was 1 day a week. We knew when our drug tests were and everything. So we knew, okay, well, Thursday or Friday, what was it? Thursday was our group. So we knew that once Thursday came, we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to do what we want to do, you know, do our coke and shit, and clean out the rest of the week and still piss clean come group time. And so I'll just call him Jay. You know, he didn't really have a lot of connects. I supplied him with his stuff, and we got high together, but we were friends. And he used to go take care of this woman out like Hyde Park area, this old woman. He'd go just take care of her house for the weekend and like be of assistance to her and stuff. And usually when he'd go out there, I'd send him with a few grams or whatever for him to do, you know, while he was gone. And it was July of 2011. He used to borrow this old man's car to go out there because he didn't have a car. And when he got back that Sunday, we were supposed to take his son to the movies. And, you know, I had talked with him up through Saturday and stuff, and Sunday came, and I couldn't get a hold of him, and he wasn't talking, and we had plans to take his son to the movies. And I ended up getting a call from the guy whose car that he he would borrow, and he said that Jay was found dead at that old woman's house that morning. And, he overdosed. He had diabetes as well. He weren't at the stage where he was losing limbs or nothing, none of that. But, he had an excuse as to why he had syringes and everything. Nobody thought anything of it. But, when he was found dead, that really, I felt really responsible for that. And I am responsible for that, the distribution with death resulting charges weren't really a thing in 2011 yet. You weren't seeing them. I don't know if you guys have those charges here. You guys have those charges here?
I'm not sure.
Where like somebody sells to somebody, they die from their stuff, the person gets hit with like a sale with death resulting type shit.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot these days. They didn't really have that back then. But, that was one of my best friends, and I took that really hard. And, it bothered me. It was an accidental thing, but I didn't mean to at all. But it bothered me more than the occasion when I was a teenager with that guy, with me protecting my friend. Way more. And I still struggle with it, to this day, because he was a really good guy and, great dad, never let his addiction get in the way of that. And, 33 years old, same age I am now, drops dead. And, yeah, I was pretty fucked up over that. I had to check myself in a rehab, and I talked about it in there a little bit, and it was hard. It was really hard for me to. I still haven't worked all the way through that. His mother came to see me in rehab, and she had given me a bunch of his stuff when he passed away and stuff, because I was his best friend. And just his mother's a churchgoer, and she was holding it together, but just it was hard. When she came to see me in rehab, her sitting there saying like, I don't know what was going on with him, the last few months. He got really skinny and dropped a lot of weight and was acting different. And, I knew why, but it was hard for me to sit across the table from his mother, knowing that I was at fault. I was, responsible for her son not being here anymore and her coming there to visit me because I'm his best friend. And, it's hard. I've thought about, I just recently reconnected with his son. It's crazy. His son looks just like him. I've thought about coming clean with them, but I don't know. There's certain things that, now I want to, do right and try to make amends with certain things, but there's also certain things that I feel like I can't because I'd incriminate myself or, fuck up the rest of my own life if I did. And it's a hard position, you know, it's a hard thing. And yeah, so it's, that situation was really hard for me. You know, that had happened. I'd lost some other people in 2011, and I was just doing crazy shit, just lost my fucking mind. And, you know, we had another buddy that got killed over a drug debt, and the night of his candlelight, you know, we go out and rob these dealers and go out there. My buddy had his little sawn-off shotgun, and same buddy I actually protected, saved, back when we were kids. And, you know, I told him not to fucking, don't be shooting anybody. You know, I know how the fuck, you know, things get. Don't, you know, when this needs to go smooth. We're in and out, we get the fucking money, that's it. And there was, you know, we thought we knew it was only supposed to be the one person there, and it was, you know, when things can go wrong, they sometimes do. And, you know, we went in and you know, I'm demanding the money and the drugs and shit, and the next thing you know, we hear a from the fucking bedroom, you know, off of the living room. We didn't expect anybody else to be there. And the person's son was there, this big ogre fucking big ass dude with a big ass 12 gauge. And my buddy kind of put his gun in his face, and we're all masked up or whatever. And he had just woken up. He kind of seemed like he wasn't sure if it was the cops or not. So he almost like went to put the shotgun down. But then he brought it back up, and that's where everything went out the fucking window. Shots started fucking going off. And it was, at that point, it was fuck the drugs, fuck the money. Like, let's get the fuck out of here before somebody ends up dead. And, you know, my buddy had fucking buckshot riddled through his backpack. Like, it was a close call. It was, you know, I had another buddy of mine that was the getaway driver, and my other buddy hands me the shotgun, and I sat on the passenger side door. Like, I put the window down, making sure, because the guy comes chasing after us in the truck. And I couldn't let him get too close to the vehicle, because I don't know, I'm getting the fucking license plate. I wasn't gonna kill him, but, you know, I had to either shoot his tire out or his engine. Luckily, my buddy got us away in time, but, you know, I just, regardless of the fucking me being out on bail for armed robbery, you know, it didn't change anything for me. I was still doing the same shit. You know, but in this time, my discovery packet had also come out, and come to find out, had I not confessed, I would have walked on that armed robbery. The only thing that held it was my confession. That was it. The cops, I didn't even notice, the 6-person lineup, they show the cashier, had 2 different mugshots of mine in there from previous arrests. One when I was junked out, you know, strung out on drugs. The other one when I was clean, just gotten out and out of rehab. So they looked like 2 different people, but they put my name under one and put a different name under the other. And there was a whole list. I wish I had brought the discovery packet, like A through X, the things that the cops and the detective did wrong on this case. You know, like, for instance, they were supposed to just detain me and search my person and my property looking for certain things that were used in the robbery. They didn't do that. They detained me, but they arrested me. They read me my rights, brought me down to the fucking station and did the whole 9. And the multiple photos in the photo lineup. There was just so much, you know, one of the cops got suspended for, was it like 3 months? Because of the corners he cut and the things he did in the case. And, you know, to learn that I would have walked had I not confessed, was a slap in the dick, you know. But, you know, people ask me today if I could go back and do things different, you know, would I? And I wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything different. I would have left everything the same because I wouldn't have the life that I have now. Things were any different. I mean, yeah, it sucked that I got stuck with the armed robbery on my record. You know, and they were, in the beginning, they were throwing out crazy offers to me. Like, I think my first offer was like an 11 to 15. The second offer was like a 7 to 13 or some shit. And I was like, the fuck is this, man? Like, this is like, I'm expecting like maybe a 2 to 5 or something, and I'm seeing football numbers. I'm like, what the fuck? And I think after the discovery packet came out, then they went down a little bit on their shit. Even though they knew they had me because of my confession, I don't know if that played a role in it or not. But I had actually thought that I was pleading guilty to a 2 to 5 to serve instead of the 3 to 7, and get credit for time served. And I would have got a 6-month pre-approved furlough window, and that would have been that. And, you know, during the sentencing, the judge decided to do the 3 to 7 and do a suspended type of sentence. And I ended up on, you know, with DOC for the next 7 years. You know, but that armed robbery ruined a lot of my opportunities. Like I said, I wanted to join the Marines. Once I got that, they're like, nope, we can overlook certain things. We can't overlook your armed robbery. You know, and like jobs, like trying to get a job, you know, with the armed robbery on my record was, I couldn't get any good jobs anywhere. Nobody wanted to hire me. Are you kidding me? You know, so my go-to, like I said earlier, was to just go back to selling drugs every time, and that's the route I took. You know, I always had I always had my people to fall back on, to get me back up. And it was the same story every time. You know, I'd sell drugs for a while, but eventually I started doing them and was back locked up and back doing the rehab thing. It was a constant cycle for me, constant cycle. And every time I went in, you know, like I knew when I was going to go in, because I knew when I was getting pulled into my PO's office. I knew I was getting piss tested. I knew I was going to be dirty. So I always went loaded. And everybody loved it when I got to prison and into the jail, because they knew I was coming locked and loaded with shit, you know. Back then, though, we also had, you know, in Kentucky, you could smoke back then. So when the Kentucky transport came back, they were all loaded with pouches of tobacco. So, like, the Kentucky transport days were awesome. But no, I managed to get stuff in with me pretty much every time, you know, whether it was, you know, tobacco was the big thing. Suboxone was the big thing. I mean, I don't know what they were going for when you were in, but these fucking Suboxone strips that you get for $5-10 on the street, you're selling for $150 in there. They're going for $15-20 a milligram, you know, and it's like a half a milligram. And it's just like, I remember my first few times after, you know, initially going in, my first, when I got sentenced, and the first few times after, you know, I managed to get a lot of shit in with me, and, you know, I was set when I got in there, but I got, you know, the COs ain't stupid. They're not stupid. They know, you know, somebody just gets in here, they in here not even fucking 48 hours, and they got a whole goddamn store in their cell. You know, they're not stupid. So, you know, the last few times that I had gone in, you know, I knew what to expect at that point. You know, I knew I was going to get shaken down. You know, I didn't even take anything out of my fucking ass until after I got shaken down about 2 or 3 times. because they knew who I was, they knew what I was about and what usually happened. Because it was stupid in there. People fiending for that shit. I had lines out of my cell door. People would come up and knock on the glass and hold up fingers for how many cigarettes they wanted. It was fucking ridiculous. And my whole desk is lined with shit, because I slept under the desk. I don't know how they did it when you were in, but we are overpopulated in Vermont. There's only supposed to be 2 people per cell. They stuck 3 in each cell, 2 on the bunks, 1 under the desk or by the toilet if they couldn't fit under the desk, because some units were smaller cells than others. But, I'd get in there and people would be excited that I had stuff, but I'd tell them, after we'd get shaken down the first time, be like, don't even fix your shit, We had got about 2 more coming before we can do anything, Just leave your shit. They're coming back. Sometimes they'd pull the okey doke. They'd come shake you down and then wait till you're asleep 3 hours later and then come shake you down again, thinking that your guard's let down. After the 3rd shakedown, I'd take the shit out. But there was one time, I didn't do a lot of hold time. Only whole time was after I got in the fight with that 8 tray. And then I was in the hole another time and I had a pouch of tobacco with me. I was doing weekends, actually. One of my sanctions they gave me, they let me do it in weekends. Just a lot of weekends. But I used to bring in tobacco and bupe with me. And one of the times I was down back in the hole, because you did your weekends in the box. And I'm down there, I roll up my first cigarette, and I'm smoking it, and I hear the keys. I hear the keys coming. I'm like, fuck, I'm duff this shit out. I'm like trying to hide it behind the toilet paper and, sit on my cell, act like I'm taking a nap. And it was the CO happened to be, I happened to be in there with somebody that I grew up with that was a CO. Somebody that I grew up with. We played sports together and shit. And he comes up, he opens the flap, and he's like, Rielly, want to go to dry cell? You know what dry cell is? Mm-mm. So dry cell, if they think that you got shit in your ass or you got slugs that you swallowed, they stick you in a cell with a light on 24/7, just a mattress. They don't give you a blanket, nothing. You shit in a bucket. You got to stay in there 72 hours. You got to shit 3 times for them. If your 72 hours is up and they want to keep you in there longer, they'll renew it. You stay in there until they're satisfied that you don't have anything in your body. And they dig through your shit to try to find whatever you brought in. So he comes up to the fucking cell. He's like, Rielly, want to go to dry cell? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, don't fucking play stupid with me. You're the only one down back here right now. Where's your shit? I was like, fuck. And I had it stuffed in my pillow because the pillows, the mattresses were like good hiding spots. Like could hide tattoo guns, hide fucking whatever in there. And a lot of times they wouldn't find it. So I threw in my pillow. He tore that motherfucker apart. He still didn't find it. And he's like, so you want to go to dry cell? And I was like, no, it's in the fucking pillow, bro. Like, I had to find it for him. And it's like, was this in your ass? And I was like, I'm not answering that. And I mean, he put me in dry cell for like 2 hours and then, whatever, just to be a dick. And then he put me in the other hole because we had two holes. We had echo unit, which was less security. Like you had a desk. You had, usually there was 2 of you in there at a time. You got, it was 23 in 1. And then they had Foxtrot, which had cameras in your cells. You didn't have a desk so that you couldn't hang yourself from your desk. It was, you couldn't flush your toilet. They flushed your toilet for you. So you couldn't flush anything. And that's the way it was in the units too. The last few times that I had went, they had programmed the toilets to be able to only flush a certain amount of times per hour. And whenever they come for shakedowns, they shut them fuckers off so that you couldn't flush anything. And there was one time that they did a whole unit shakedown. Not the whole unit. They went from unit to unit. They brought in all these cadets and these dogs and everything. And I had a fuck ton of butte that I had. Because back then, before they knew about the man pouch trick, the man pouch in your briefs, it's got that little pocketed area. I used to take Suboxone strips and tear them into little squares and put them in there because they take your boxers and they do this shit with them and feel if there's anything in there, they're not going to feel those. So that's how I used to get them back. And I'd keep them in the dirty laundry because nobody wants to go digging through dirty fucking underwear when they shake you down. Or I'd have little things like under my desk, if I was on the floor, the wall, I'd draw squares with pencil with the white paint, and I'd fold up all the milligrams, all the strips in a piece of paper, and I'd tuck it into the desk where it just looked like squares that were shaped like a fucking upside down pyramid. And you couldn't tell that there was a piece of paper there. It just looked like a drawing. Or I'd peel paint off the wall and put it, because sometimes with the concrete walls, you got the little divots, the little holes. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-mm. Like where concrete didn't settle right, and there'd be, even if it was just the tiniest little hole, but you could put shit in there and then take the paint and you lick your fingers, you put saliva on the wall and you put the paint over it, and it looks like there's not a hole there.
Wow, that's smart.
Yeah, no, you get like your ingenuity level is through the roof in jail, Like people like us would make great COs because we know all the tricks. But I got away with, I did the rest of my weekends in Foxtrot after that, and I didn't bring anything with me after that. But he could have really royally fucked me. He could have got me for introduction charges and whatever else. But, he gave me a break because we knew each other.
How did you finally get clean?
So how I finally got clean was my wife now was my best friend at the time that I went in my last time back in 2015, because what had happened with that was I was about to get my probation revoked, and they were going to make me just do my 7-year sentence. And I was nodding out doing doing work crew, and FSU had taken me to see my PO, and I was with my kid's mother, my daughter's mother at the time. And, we were friends with my wife now and who she was with at the time. But me and my kid's mother were kind of on our way out the door of each other because our relationship just became about the drug world. And it wasn't what it was in the beginning. And so I had gone to see my PO that last time. She's like, I'm done. We're not doing this anymore. We're prolonging the inevitable. You have court tomorrow. And in my head, I'm like, fuck, I do. I'm not going to court tomorrow. And I didn't show up to court the next day. I said, fuck it, if I'm going to do my time, catch me if you can. And I did. So I went on the run for a while. But my wife, being friends, like we had just hit it off right off the bat. I mean, we knew who each other were, but it's like sometimes you just meet people come into your life, and it's like you were always meant to meet that person. And she always saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. I didn't want to see it in myself. I was set in my ways. I didn't want to live any other way. I started to, I guess, at the end of like when things were at the peak, at the worst, with all the weight that we were moving, me and my Brooklyn people, because I spent a lot of time out in East New York, Brooklyn. I don't know if you know about East New York or, Pink houses, Louis H. Pink houses, they call them the Pinky Projects. It's out, East New York's just as bad as Brownsville. It's a fucking war zone out there. It's bad. But I mean, we were supplying the whole fucking state of Vermont and then some. I mean, we were lining the car back to send back to New York every week with $120,000, $150,000 every week. Things got sketchy though, because the cops were watching. I tell that to everybody. If you think you're selling drugs and you think the cops don't know what you're doing, you're stupid. It's all about staying a step ahead of them. But it really got to a sketchy point where couldn't fucking sleep, constantly having to worry about who's going to try to rob you or who's going to, whether the cops are going to roll in your place. We knew the feds were watching us and find out later down the road that we had people coming in wearing wires with marked bills and all this shit. I had people, like I mentioned before, I had a good buddy of mine that took a hit for me. He got caught on the way back with my people, and they got smoked. The feds caught him coming off the Greyhound and been watching. Caught him with a bunch of work, caught him with a bunch of dope. And he took a 5-year bid and didn't give me up. It was him and my people. So I was grateful for that. But it just, we were dealing with so much shit that if we had gotten caught at that time, for Vermont, that was a lot of shit. It's a lot of work. They would have made examples out of us. Depending on who it was. Feds, it's a little different than state. What's a lot for state isn't always a lot for Fed. Because Fed deals with everything, whatever, 100 grams plus. And, my wife, who was my friend at the time, really started, she started to get me to start thinking different about things. And the night I got caught, when I finally got caught, my daughter had been taken. I had been on the run for 4 or 5 months. DCF had placed my daughter with my parents because I was a fugitive from justice and I had her in my care. And, it was just all the drug shit and stuff. And it wasn't a good place for my daughter to be. It was a good thing for her to go with my parents. But the night I got busted, the night I got picked up, they did a sweep in Vermont where they rounded up listed, people with listed offense, like violent offenders with outstanding, warrants and stuff. I had a failure to appear. I had a minimus warrant, which means I owed the state time and all that stuff. And, the cops stopped me and my daughter's mother while we were walking, and I didn't think he knew who I was. But once he said my name and told me to get on the ground, I went to go get on the ground, but I was like, fuck, if I go away, I'm going away for a while. So it's either run or don't. So I pulled the selfish move and I popped up off the ground before more units arrived, and I put my daughter's mother between me and the cop because I knew he wouldn't shoot with her in the way. I thought he was going to shoot because he had his gun on me, and while I'm running, he's yelling, "Dylan, stop." He's like, "Don't make me do this." And everything slowed down. I thought he was going to shoot me, because they always knew that I was known to carry a gun, and they were worried that they was going to try using some excuse like something had just happened where somebody pulled the gun. And it was a bad situation. And I ran. I got away from him, but as soon as I started running, I see blue lights everywhere, and they were all waiting for me down there. So I think I was set up by the person who called me to go down there. And I tried getting away from them, and they were just by the time I was out of energy, they were coming down both sides of the street from both directions, and I was just walking, and they suplexed me and fucking George Floyded me. I thought I was gonna die. So last time I ended up going in, and I thought I was in for the long haul. I thought I was going down to Arizona, and my PO actually went to bat for me, and I ended up getting lucky, and I got another shot. I got treatment court. You know what treatment court is?
Yeah.
I got treatment court for the violations, not for the robbery. They weren't going to let me do treatment court. I never qualified for treatment court with my armed robbery because of the, being a listed offense. They weren't going to expunge that shit. But they told me, you complete treatment court, we'll let you off of DOC supervision, and, your violations get expunged. We're not expunging your armed robbery, but you'll be off of DOC. Or if you fail and get your door B, you serve the rest of your time. I still had a lot of fucking time to serve. I still had at least 5 fucking years to serve. And so they did not expect me to make that. And nobody had really graduated that program yet. It was hard to complete that program. But when I got out, they let me out. I went back to rehab again, got out. I was on an ankle monitor on house arrest on the GPS. And I had just broken up with my kid's mother, and my wife had just broken up with her man. And I originally moved in with my cousin. But he was such a hardcore drinker, and his house was a fucking pigsty. I couldn't stay there, And he's not with us anymore. He died from his alcoholism. But I ended up staying with my wife, and we got together shortly after that, June of 2015. We've been together ever since. And I relapsed, shortly after moving in with her, went back to rehab again. I ended up staying clean for 13 months. And, same story. Every time went back to selling drugs again. And 2016 was a hard year. Lost a lot of people. So just, it was a hard year, and I used that as an excuse to just run fucking wild. I went back getting high again, and I struggled, for the next 2 years till 2018. And I ended up overdosing, one of my overdoses I had in 2018. And luckily, the people I was with didn't pull some dirtbag shit and just leave me on the side of the road like people do sometimes, or take my shit. And, they gave me CPR and mouth-to-mouth, Narcan, all that shit for like 30 minutes, brought me back. And I had wanted to get stable on Suboxone, but I couldn't, because the thing with I don't know if you know about the whole thing with fentanyl and Suboxone. If you take Suboxone with fentanyl or any other opiates in your system still, it puts you into like precipitated withdrawals, which is detox tenfold, makes you wicked sick. And I had done that a couple of times, but I couldn't get there. But once I got Narcan, those, after overdosing, and it kicked a lot of that shit out of my receptors, I took that as an opportunity to get clean again and get back stable on Suboxone. So I did, and I ended up slipping again a month later, overdosed again, got saved by a friend of mine who I ended up saving the next day again. She's dead now too. And I stayed clean from the end of 2018 until the end of 2020. And I had lost a few people close to me, and I had gone back to selling drugs around that time, thinking I could do the same thing again with different results. The same story. I got back into doing shit again for about a month and a half. But then I got clean again on my own, on my couch, with a Suboxone, just macro-dosed it, and just kicked it out of my system and went through a hard detox. And after that, I ended up staying clean until summer of 2023. And I ended up just in a bad situation. I had lost a job, and unemployment was going to be taking months, and I was getting strapped for cash. And I had these Dominicans that, I had talked to from Lawrence, Mass. And they had offered me a couple times, to put me on with work and stuff. And I turned them down because I wasn't trying to live that life anymore. I was trying to, do good things, work a regular job, working on my credit, staying out of the streets, being a family man, And all it took was just the wrong time, wrong situation. I was stressing about money. He hit me up saying, I know I've offered you a couple times now and you've turned it down, but times are tough. So if you find yourself in a tough spot, let me know and I'll put you on board and make money. And I was a dumbass and did it. And, next thing I know, I'm taking a trip down to Lawrence, Mass. And this dude just blesses me with a couple ounces of dope. It was a fucking business gift, I don't have to pay for it. So I started selling again, for a little while before I started actually using it. But, I started making the bigger trips because I told him that, I'm not coming down for any less than 100 grams because that makes it federal. Federal, you get caught with 100 grams or anything like that, you're doing like maybe a nickel. You get caught with something like that or underneath that Fed threshold in state court, they're fucking slaying you. You get caught with 80 grams of fentanyl or anything like that, you're fucked. It's just a nickel in the Fed. So I told him, yeah, I'll keep doing business, but I'm not coming down for any less than a federal indictment. So I started doing things on a bigger level, and same story every time. I ended up I started doing it because being a man, we don't like to work through our past traumas and our past issues. We like to stuff them and think that we got the shit under control. I'm sure you can relate. We don't want to ask people for help. We don't want to work on trauma. We want to stuff it down and keep it in the past and just keep moving. And something happened, I had caught the wrong episode of the first 48. It brought up that shit from that fucking night. I had to protect my friend, and it fucked with me really hard that night. I went to sleep and I just had nightmares, and I was going through a hard time, and I had the dope there. And I knew that would take my mind off of shit. Started with just being like, all right, I'm just going to do it this one time. And that one time it's never one time. And, I went off the rails for about a week and a half and tried getting clean on my own again the same way that I had gotten clean before macrodosing with the Butte. But problem is now the fentanyl was different. The xylazine was out there, and I tried taking a bunch of Suboxone, and it made me really sick. Yeah, but I also went into a bunch of seizures. We ended up having a once in a century flood. I don't know if you remember. 2023, July 10th, 2023, we got flooding all over New England. It was fucking bad, and we got hit hard. I mean, it filled our basement with water, ruined a bunch of my fucking dope that I had down there that was stashed, and ruined my grow. I had my grow tent down there. I was pissed, but the wifey did good. She got my plants up out of there before they were ruined all the way. But I tried to get clean on my own again, and I fucking couldn't do it. It put me into seizures. It just was not safe. I ended up in the hospital the day of the flood. Like, ambulances couldn't get to me because, I mean, the shit was, some places were too dangerous even for rescue by boat. It was crazy. It was a big deal. So I had to send a bucket loader down to my end of town. You know, our end of town on the north end of Barry. It's the kind of the hood area, Barry. It's the shit fucking area, and it's just down in the fucking valley, and just filled up with water quick. They had to send a bucket loader to come get me, and take me all the way across the city to a fucking ambulance in a bucket loader while I'm having seizures and detoxing. It was fucking rough, man. It was rough. And, you know, I had a hard time with that one. You know, it was the shortest relapse I had ever had, but it was the hardest one at the same time because I did something that I had never done in my life. I used in front of my wife. Like, I shot up in front of my wife. She wouldn't leave me alone, let me do it in peace. And I said, fuck it. And I just did it right in front of her. And I always swore to myself I would never do that and never get her in the shit because I aided in getting my kid's mother in the shit, you know? And I just, that relapse, I had so many emotions going on from past traumas I hadn't dealt with, and the fact that I felt like I wasn't strong enough anymore to do it on my own, to get clean again on my own. And, like, it wasn't safe for me to do it on my own. I was having fucking seizures and everything, and I had to check myself into rehab again. And, you know, I hadn't been there in years, but it's what it took to get me clean again safely. And, you know, I became peer mentor while I was there, and, you know, really became a valued member of the community in there, and everybody looked up to me. I got people out of their comfort zones because I was coming out of my comfort zone, talking about things I had never talked about before, working on those hard things. You know, I had one more shot with my family, you know. Over that 10 years, with all the bullshit I put my wife through, she stuck around. Like, I don't even know if I would have stuck around if it was the other way around. Like, I put her through a lot of shit. Somehow she stuck by through it, and she didn't, you know, she deserved a lot better. And you know, so I really started trying to put in the real work this time while I was there, and, you know, made the biggest impact in the short time that I was there that I could. And, you know, I had staff, I ran groups in there. I mean, shit, I've been there over a dozen times. I could rewrite that fucking program, fuck's sakes, you know. I was running groups. I had staff members telling me, you know, you should really come back to work here, you know. I couldn't even run groups that good, like, you know. And funny story, I had an interview there a month ago. You know, I didn't get the job, but I'm sure maybe at some point I will. I just try to pay it forward now, you know, and try to help people that are in the same position that I was in. You know, because I went the wrong way for a long time, and you know, now I'm retired. I you know, I don't put in work for nothing anymore. I don't need to. I spent my younger years doing all that. You know, I'm a fucking OG now. I live the family life. I try to do the right thing. I try to do legal things with my life. You know, I got my armed robbery sealed off my record in 2020. I petitioned it because they changed the new law that made, before they put this law into effect in 2018 that made people that under 21 or 21 and under, or under 21, one or the other, made them youthful offenders. And it changed the law that made it so that if you picked up charges that you couldn't get off your record prior to that age, it like grandfathered you in to be able to get those things expunged or sealed. They weren't going to expunge my armed robbery, but it was possible to get it sealed off my record. So I spent a year petitioning the court and had everything in my life in order at that point. You know, I had a job, you know, I was working on my credit. I had my daughter, you know, sharing my daughter with my daughter's mother. I was off papers. I had been off for a few years. I was clean. I had no ammo for them to use against me. And the state's attorney was not trying to have it happen. And after I advocated for myself in the final hearing, I literally left that state's attorney with no reason to say no, to the point where he said he wasn't making the decision. He was leaving it up to the judge. And I won the judge over. She granted my sealment. And like now I can say that I'm legally not a convicted felon.
That's awesome, man.
You know, it's bittersweet because I almost feel like I don't deserve it, because just because I never picked up any more serious charges after my armed robbery doesn't mean I didn't commit them. You know, I was fucking robbing. I was robbing dealers. I was robbing businesses. I was robbing stores. I was robbing fucking everything. You know, I was selling drugs. I've done enough shit. I should be in jail for fucking life, you know? Like, I was doing a lot of shit. I just didn't get caught, you know? And anytime cops came poking around, it was nope. Anytime they asked me questions, it was nope. Lawyer. Nope. Lawyer. There's only 2 words I'd say. And, you know, jail, it makes you a smarter criminal. It really fucking does. I never got picked up for anything I did after the armed robbery. But I also tried to give myself the benefit of the doubt and say, well, you may have committed crimes since then, but look at where you are now. Look at where you're at now compared to where you were. Look at what you're doing with your life. You're not doing that anymore. You may have done it over the years, but you're not that person anymore, you know? So I cut myself a little slack with it, you know? There's a lot of people, so many of my friends, ones that are still alive, will never get that opportunity. I can't pass an FBI background check, you know? I'll never be able to pass one of those. It still show up on an FBI background check. You know, I can't buy firearms. I can't do, you know... I'm supposed to be treated in all aspects as though I was never charged or committed or convicted or none of that. But when you plead guilty to a felony, you give up that right to own firearms.
What's the life lesson you want people to take away from this?
It's never too late. If your heart's still beating, it's never too late. You know, you can still turn it around. You can still make a good life for yourself. It may not be the life that you wanted, but best believe it's better than the life that you were living. You know, if I can do it, if I, of all people, can do it, that nobody ever thought would do it, anybody can do it. It just, you have to be ready. You have to be there. You have to be sick of that lifestyle. You have to be sick of cheating death. You have to be, you know, sick of just the, you know, all the bad shit that comes along with it, all the just the negative shit. You have to want a better life for yourself. And over time, my wife gave me something better to strive for. And I believe that, you know, I have a bigger purpose here. I shouldn't be here after the overdoses that I've had, after the stabbing. You know, I had somebody, you know, try to take my life back in 2016. I got in that fight with that stabbing, just taking a fucking walk. You know, he didn't stab me to hurt me. He stabbed me in the chest, in the rib cage. He stabbed me up through the fucking eye. He's, you know, I've got a cut on the back of my neck. Like, he tried to take my fucking life, and I'm still fucking here. You know, like, I've got dozens and dozens of friends that didn't get half as lucky as me. You know, I couldn't sit here and write down the amount of people that I've lost. 2020, I lost 12 friends. You know, 2016, I lost count. There's been years over between, you know, then and now that I've lost track. I mean, if I sat down, the amount of people I've lost, I could probably write down 50, 60 names easy. And it's sad. It's sad that it's like that. And, you know, I'm scared for my daughter for when she gets to that age. Things are just not the same as they used to be, and the drugs have gotten more dangerous, and the world is just not the same place it used to be. Everything's fucking different. Everything, every aspect of this world is different. You know, there's no loyalty out there anymore with anything. It's hard to find, you know, but like I said, all I can do is believe that there's a reason that I'm here when all these other people aren't. So, you know, I have a lot of things that people can relate to in one way or another, somewhere in my story. And I mean, I could come here every fucking month and tell new shit, you know, like, trying to squeeze this in with a short time frame is hard.
And you did great with, you know, 2.5 hours, man.
You know, it's hard. I mean,
all the more reason to start your own, you know, channel and start producing content about it.
I've thought about doing that as well. You know, I mean,
definitely
reach more people with that. You know, it's. I'm not gonna lie. It's hard to get to the point where I'm at, and yeah, you know, I've been dealing with health stuff, and my future might be uncertain with, you know, my health stuff going on. It's been hard for me to hold down a job with my health shit, and I'm dealing with some hard shit, you know, that's out of my control for once. You know, the other shit was in my control. You know, this is different, you know, dealing with stuff that I don't have control over. It's not like I can be like, okay, I'm going to stop doing drugs. Or I'm going to stop hanging out with these people. I'm going to stop doing this, and this will go away. You know, having these health issues that are cutting into work, and now I'm sitting at a place flat broke. I've never been in my fucking, you know, since I can remember, and my credit is excellent, getting ready to go down the fucking drain. Like, you know, don't get it twisted. I've had bad thoughts lately. You know, I've had thoughts come into my mind like, you know what'll help you out right now? Even though I've spent all but 2 months of the last 6 years clean, I still have, you know, that devil on my shoulder. You know, it's always going to be there. It's just you gotta fight that. You've gotta know that some way, it's gonna work out.
Absolutely.
Some way, one way or another, something will happen. You'll have a breakthrough. It's nothing. Nightmares end.
You just gotta keep pushing forward.
Nightmares end.
There's always a light at that end of the tunnel. But
yeah.
Dylan, I appreciate you, man, coming out here and sharing your story with us today. You did an incredible job telling it. It's definitely going to inspire some people.
I hope it does. I hope it reaches somebody. It's like I said, it was a little difficult trying to find what to talk about, and I may not be in front of a group of people, but knowing that there's going to be so many people that hear this, it's different. But the more people that hear it, the more chances there are that maybe somebody can be like, hey, you know, I could get there. That could be me. You know, maybe it's possible for me.
Absolutely.
And I know you like to ask people, you know, what would you tell your younger self? You know? And I've tried to think about that ever since we scheduled this, and I really don't know what I would tell my younger self. Because like I said, I mean, if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. That happened in my younger years, especially before my marriage and before my daughter, because if anything had gone different, that whole butterfly effect, I wouldn't have my daughter. I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't have my stepson. I wouldn't have the life that I have now. I don't think I'd even be alive, you know, if anything had gone different. So I can't, even though it ruined chances for me, I can't say that I would take anything back.